Hands up! Do you know who made that phrase famous? I do. As a magician, I love all things that are cons or heists, and what's better than a good old-fashioned train robbery? Today we're talking about Canada's very first train robbery in 1904, a man by the name Bill Miner. His life story is insane. Although Bill Miner is born in Kentucky, American, he's famous for being a Canadian train robber. Bill Miner was a career criminal. He didn't become famous for the first Canadian train robbery until he was 54. By that point in his life, he'd already spent 33 years in prison. He committed dozens of robberies, but he committed these robberies exclusively on big corporations, was always super polite, and never hurt anyone. That was part of his genius, not to mention, he had a badass mustache. Bill Miner should be as well known as people like Jesse James. I don't know why he's not. He was known as the Gray Fox or the Gentleman Bandit. He's like a Robin Hood type guy. You know, he would steal from the rich and give to the poor, or at least so the legend goes. He coins the phrase, hands up. Come on, when you pull out a gun, it's the first thing you do. Hands up. He's the guy. How is he not more famous than Jesse James? Come on! Now let's get down to it. Let's talk about the first Canadian train robbery. In September of 1904, Bill Miner and his gang hit up a CPR train just outside of Mission, BC. This is where I'm from. Bill Miner's technique was actually genius. They would find a place where the train had to slow down, like on a huge corner or curve, and they'd board that way because it's traveling the slowest. They'd pull their guns out, tell everyone hands up, being super polite. They'd make the engineer stop the train. They would then unhook the mail car. That's the car that's going to be carrying all the checks, bonds, cash, all of that. They'd unhook that car, and then they'd make the engineer drive a few miles down the track. Genius. What did they get away with? $6,000 in gold dust, $900 in currency, and $50,000 in US bonds. What does $57,000 in 1904 equal? That's basically getting a score of $1.6 million if you did it today. Hello, that's a payday. And they got away with it. I guess because they're the first train robbers to rob a train in Canada, Canada was pretty ill prepared to stop train robberies. They offered a reward for Bill Miner for $11,500. So I guess Bill Miner and his gang decided that they were going to lay low and live off this money for a while. And he wasn't even being that cunning. He was just living as a guy named George Edwards up in Kamloops, which is like 2.5 hours away from this robbery. And by all accounts, George Edwards was a super nice guy. No one suspected him. Isn't that always the way? A couple years goes by and then they figure, let's do it again. So on May 8th of 1906, that's exactly what they decide to do. Only this time, maybe they're a little lazier, I don't know, but they decide to rob a train that's like 24 kilometers outside of Kamloops. I guess Bill didn't want to have a big commute to work. I can understand that. Except this time, they only got $15 and some liver pills and ended up in jail. Yeah, what went wrong? Let me tell you. They used their patented technique of waiting till the train slows down on a curve, boarding it, being super polite to everybody, getting the engineer to stop the train, detaching the mail car, and having the other train drive a few miles down the track. But they fucked up. They unhooked the wrong car. The car that they had unhooked to rob was for the international mail. All they found was $15 and some liver pills. Basically worthless. The car that they wanted to unhook was the one in front of that one, which is now miles down the track attached to the rest of the train. That one had $80,000 in gold bricks in it. Yeah, big mistake. But they don't want to get caught, so they grab their $15 in liver pills and peace out. But this train robbery really pissed off the CPR and the provincial police. So now they've upped the reward to $15,000. We're talking about 1906, remember? And not only do they have the provincial police after them, they have American detectives, cowboys, special constables, indigenous trackers, bloodhounds. Everybody's looking for these guys. They stayed on the run for about 6 days. They arrest them and throw them in jail with a life sentence. All that for $15 and some liver pills. So sad. But the story doesn't end there. A year later, in August of 1907, Bill Miner escapes. How did he escape? Well, he dug a hole under a fence. Oh, to be a criminal in 1907 when you can just dig a hole under the fence. What the hell, people? After he escapes, no one turns him in and they can't find him. Partially because he kind of had the support of the Canadian people. They would say things like, oh, old Bill Miner ain't so bad, he only steals from the CPR, and they've been robbing us for years. If you steal from like a large corporation or the government and no one gets hurt, it kind of feels like a victimless crime. I'm not saying it is, but it's part of the thing that I love about this. Now he's got this Robin Hood-like myth around him. There's even stories of him taking some of the money he stole and paying off a widow's mortgage. He was just that kind of guy. And if you're gonna be on the run, that's probably the kind of guy you want to be. Bill Miner remained at large until 1911, when he was eventually arrested again in Georgia. They find Bill Miner hiding in an old boxcar in a swamp. Oh, just like out of a movie. You can't write this stuff. So they stuck him back in prison, but he escaped. Twice. Each of those escapes were very short-lived, and he eventually did die in prison. That's the story of Bill Miner and the first Canadian train robbery. Also, he committed the last Canadian train robbery. So he really bookended that nicely if you think about it. I wish there were more movies made about Bill Miner. This guy is a legend. I love this story. Exactly my kind of thief. Not that you should be stealing anything anyways, but if you're gonna do it like the Gentleman Bandit, with a smile on your face, a huge mustache, and leaving everyone feel like, that guy ain't so bad. Hope you guys enjoyed this story. I loved reading about it. If you have any more cool heist stories that you think I'd be interested in, please throw them in the comments. I love reading up on this stuff. I'm having a blast. Oh yeah, and like and subscribe. Even if you could, maybe go to like some huge YouTuber's channel and steal some of their subscribers and bring them back, and we'll split them up amongst us, right? Right? Just a thought. Take care, everybody. See you on the next one.